Hello, I'm Chase Gullett from Chasing Vintage Guitars. I build handmade guitars here. This is my Challenger model here. Do a beveled edge here, multi-ply bindings on the sides. These are Lawler Imperial pickups, real mother of pearl inlays there, a carved headstock as well. The back of the guitar is a wonderful burst finish here, and then my signature on the back. Clisson tuners, Tone Pros hardware, CTS pots, Mallory caps. This is a flame maple top on this guy, kind of an iced tea burst. So the reason I'm shooting this video is to kind of let you guys in a little bit on my company and what I do. I'm going to probably start a few fires with some of the subjects that I cover within this. I'm going to talk about handmade guitars and kind of what that means to me, and a little bit of a gripe in sorts of the guys that are calling hand sanded handmade. I do not use a CNC for any of this work, and I think that that's a little bit of where my gripe of sorts is going to come into play there. A lot of guys are using CNCs nowadays. Nothing wrong with that. CNC will make a fantastic guitar. The tolerances are exquisite on those machines. I worked in a cabinet shop for a long time that utilizes CNC, and I've seen the amazing work that they can do firsthand. They also require an incredible amount of intelligence to program them properly and to get them to run the programs the way you need them to. There's no doubt in my mind that the guys that are creating the programs and running the programs are not highly skilled. The thing is though is by that same concept of I took it off the machine and it's a tool like anything else, and then took a lot of final fitment and hand sanding, so therefore it's a handmade guitar. Well, by those same principles, your average entry-level guitar from pick any company, Squier for instance, would be technically a handmade guitar by those same principles. The parts come off the machine, Joe Nobody sands them, somebody else puts them together, somebody paints them. So I guess the point I'm trying to get there is, I bought some Starbucks the other day. It's a handcrafted coffee. Handmade. Handmade's a word that gets thrown around a lot nowadays. And I think that what it does is it really devalues the people that have, had the constitution to take the time to learn a trade and to learn how to do it properly. And, the guys that can make a guitar, there's guys that make nicer guitars than I am out there, but the guys that are doing this actually from hand, they're doing it the same way in the tradition that the guitars in the 50s and 60s were built. They've got a router out, they've got templates that they've made. If they screw it up, they've got to come back and fix it. It takes a lot of skills to know how much you can take off with a router. It takes a lot of skills to run your body blanks near a bandsaw and get just the right amount of tolerance so you don't have a bunch of tear out. Set your neck angles properly, carve the necks, make the guitars consistent. There's an incredible amount of skill that goes into that, and I feel like calling something handmade when it's made with a CNC, a machine, those guys are writing a program and they're drawing a picture. And, well, the guys that are doing it by hand have to draw those same pictures. The difference is as they come through, the amount of skill it takes to operate each one of those tools and the time that has to be invested into that, it's learning the craft and the tooling that it takes to do that. It's an incredible amount of work. And it kind of devalues those guys' skill and trade by calling something not handmade, handmade. In my opinion, a handmade guitar, there's going to be a lot of flame over this. A lot of guys are, well, if you didn't cut down the tree yourself, let's be realistic here. There's a huge difference between a guy taking, for me personally, I go to the lumber mill, sawmill, if you will, and I get 12-quarter mahogany blanks. That's what I make my necks. That's basically a 3-inch slab of mahogany, and then from there, because it is so thick, I can orient that so I always have quarter sawn necks. I like those because they're more stable. They're less likely to move on you in humidity changes and things of that nature. So we go out. I go out I pick out my materials, I bring them in, I run them through my own planer, I mill them from rough stock, and then I, make my own templates. I don't have a CNC program doing that. I have to take the time to lay it all out, make sure it's correct, and then cut it all, and then sand it all, and fine tune it, and then from there replicate those guitars so that they're all within the same specs. So the idea is a guy that can, and I'm not saying that handmade guitars are better. Trust me, there's a lot of handmade guitars out there that the instant you see them, you know they're handmade. Most of the time, a CNC guitar is a better guitar, but for the handful of guys out there that are doing it old school and legitimately hand making these guitars, the amount of skill set that it takes to produce something that you would not expect to be handmade and get it at a level that it looks factory built and it looks like you pulled it off of a machine. The amount of work it takes and skills to get that, the tolerance is the same. It's incredible. And, I guess it's kind of like there's nothing wrong with that. You want a fine guitar, a CNC guitar is going to be a fine guitar. They're great guitars. I've got a little bit of CNC envy. It'd be lovely to use it for inlay work and things of that nature. The tolerances are incredible on them. The difference is, though, it just really devalues the skill set and the artistry that goes into producing a really handmade guitar. The time it takes, you get a factory built instrument, and these guys are wanting, thousands of dollars for these custom shop instruments. Even at that point, most of the time, you're not getting a single guy doing it. I go out, I select my own materials, I mill all of my own stock. I bend my own frets. I put in my own frets. I do my own fret work. I bind the guitars. I paint the guitars. I set the guitars up. It's really a one-man operation, and I could have up to 200 hours in some of these builds that I do. So a lot of times it's, what are you really getting? Are you, you pay for, say, a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, you're wanting that handmade guitar, or your handmade car, for instance. I would feel kind of duped if I found out that, that handmade car that I spent so much money on turned out to be, built with the same machines they built my neighbor's Honda Civic with. And there's nothing wrong with the Honda Civic. It's going to get you from point A to point B. But it's not a Bentley, it's not a Rolls Royce, and you're in my opinion getting duped in a lot of ways. I guess let the fires go, and we'll see what happens. But if you buy a Chasing Vintage guitar, I am the guy that built it, and this is your result from that. And I can tell you now, with no CNC in here, in sight, no robots cutting my things, not to toot my own horn, but this is artistry. There is an incredible amount of skill that went into this. Sculpting those heel joints, making sure all that stuff's nice and fine. The time spent in wet sanding and buffing the lacquer so it's not full of pores. Being patient with your lacquer. A lot of guys are finishing the stuff. It doesn't matter what a lot of guys are doing. The point is, you come to Chasing Vintage Guitars, you purchase a guitar from me, I'm going to put my best foot forward, and I'm going to make you the finest instrument I can. I don't use a CNC. I do all the work in-house, and you really are getting functional art. You are paying for my skills and my time and the years of work that's went into developing that. So it's my name on the line. I want to produce you the finest guitar I can. So hopefully that kind of answered a few questions about some of my process, and hopefully I didn't make everybody in the industry angry. So, thanks for watching, guys, and take care. Bye.